You know, for as long as the world has had actors, musicians, acrobats, really any kind of professional entertainer, there have been people waiting in the wings to exploit them. Unscrupulous managers, promoters, producers who really couldn't care less about their clients. We've seen it a lot. They just want their clients' money. We've told the story before. It's a tough lesson to learn for any performer, but some would-be social media stars say they experienced a whole lot worse at the hands of a California pastor named Robert Shin. Now, we brought you Shin's story last year, and just a few days ago, the FBI, the IRS, the Labor Department, and even the post office raided Shin's LA area home. And according to the warrants, the agents were investigating allegations of sex trafficking, money laundering, mail fraud, tax evasion, and pandemic fraud. Several people were led away from the homes in handcuffs, but authorities say that no arrests were made. Shin is the head of the Shinkia Church and founder of a talent agency called 7M Films. He says they're both separate entities, but others say Shin runs them in tandem in ways that cult leaders would recognize. Shin's accused of luring dancers on TikTok to sign with 7M, promising to make them stars, but then manipulating them financially, physically, and spiritually. Former clients say he pressured them to disown their families, and some have accused him of sexual assault. Now, last year, Shin and his church were profiled in the Netflix docuseries Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok cult. You may have seen it. An ex-client named Aubrey Fisher appeared in the doc and talked about it later on this show. He told Ashleigh what it was like being in Robert Shin's church. Take a listen.
It seemed like he was taking 20%, which is not an unreasonable management fee, but things started to change, as I understand it. Like all of a sudden you're being manipulated into being part of the roommate club, and then freedom started to disappear. And then at one point, as I read it, you had to die to your family members in order to be committed to the church. I mean, when did you start to realize this isn't normal, this is a cult?
I started to realize it when everything started shifting, when all the media started pointing out like Shekinah, like Robert Shin, and like 7M, like this is something fishy, like everything was being exploded like around social media. And then we had meetings, and then we had services, and then we would change the dates. Like, say, for instance, we'll have meetings on Wednesday, we'll change to like a Thursday or a Tuesday. Or if we had like a service on Sunday, we'll change to like a Saturday. So everything was switching up. And then he wanted to have everybody like go see our families, talk to our friends, make sure that everything that you do, post it so that way people can see that everything is normal and everything just looks like we're not in a cult at all.
Okay, so 7M Films has denied the allegations, and I want to bring in someone who knows a lot about this case. Katie Joy, a journalist who originally broke the story. Katie, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I mean, wow, a lot of developments, new developments. Were you surprised by this huge raid? I mean, we listed off how many agencies were there. This is wild. I understand that you spoke to the FBI about Shin a year ago, you know, when you were swatted by the church, but then got ghosted by authorities. So what's going on?
This is a long time coming. I'd say more than just my report to the FBI. There was several reports. In fact, I know as far back as March or April of 2022, former members were reporting that they had reported him to the IRS. And they were reporting him to the IRS because he was converting and converging money through his taking donations through the church and then siphoning that out into his for-profit businesses, which is a crime. And he was using tax-free money to start for-profit companies. And so they sat with the IRS back in 2022. I mean, those were the first meetings with the IRS. And then there was multiple FBI reports, the Wilking family. There has been multiple former members that are not as visible that have reported him to the FBI. There have been calls to the Department of Labor. Obviously, there's an ongoing case, a civil case, which prompted a report to the California Labor Department, but also to the EEOC. So, and the mail fraud this is just the tip of the iceberg, let's just say.
Okay, I mean, that was a long list of agencies that came on this raid. It happened a couple of days ago. We're looking at these aerials of some of the raids. And it's interesting to note that all these people that were out in cuffs, nobody apparently was arrested. So that's interesting. I mean, maybe they got what they needed and off they went. I'm not sure. It was Shin. Do we know exactly where Shin was?
Yeah, so the property that was raided is actually the one that they saw on camera. That's the Tahunga property. So it has an entire school that's there. It used to be a Christian school that Robert purchased in 2020, and he was going to convert it into a church. And then off to the side of that house, that white building that you see there, that's actually like an apartment / house. And he has a bunch of his members living there, none of them related, some of them with kids, and they're all just housed there. So the people that you saw detained on the news were his son Isaiah, one of his deputies or mentors, Shirley, who was sitting with a baby. There was Matthew Shin, who was another mentor. There was Young Bin Kim, who was a 2-time convicted armed robber, and then Luke Song, and then Geo. So these are just members. Robert was actually at his home in Porter Ranch. So Robert owns like a $2 million home with about 5,000 square feet. He and his wife, Hannah, who's his third, maybe fourth wife, third within this church, 22 years younger than him. They live in a home by themselves. And then he houses all of the members like rats, and
wow,
they live.
This is wild. I mean, This is wild. I mean, first of all, the fact that you know all of those names of everybody that we're looking on the screen, it sounds like when we were covering the Diddy case and like everybody knew the family members coming out, but different story, of course. Members were told to recruit more people. I want to get into, what this is about, because not everybody has seen the Netflix doc and not everybody knows about the reporting, but members that were in this group, and again, these are allegations that there have been no charges here, but people are coming out and being public now saying that there were reports of people working as mentors. They were told to go out and recruit. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So this church has been going on for like 25 plus years. Robert's had several iterations of it. So it's not just like brand new. He's recently got into the TikTok world by recruiting these dancers, but Robert has for many years run a cult-like organization. And what you see today is the product of Robert having to hide from his past, because back in 2008, he had a very large group of young people working for him, and he was accused by no less than 6 women of sexual assault. And in 2008, that church ended up splitting, and so he was left with like half the church and the other half went with his sister. And then he changed his name from Israel Shin to Robert Shin, and he added an N to the end of his name. So his name is actually Robert Shin with 1 N, and now he's Robert Shin with 2 N's.
Okay.
So every single time something blows up, he ends up changing his identity and he moves. And so this Tahunga property is like the 3rd or 4th place he's been, because he has to keep moving. And every single time he moves, he has to get more and more secretive. So today's iteration of it is so much more isolated for the members. It's not just dancers that are involved in this. There are invisible human beings that are being labor trafficked, sex trafficked. They're having their entire lives controlled. He is dangerous.
Yeah, and these are allegations. We have to mention that because there have been no charges, but certainly we've been hearing that as well. And just really quick, you've talked about Robert Shin. I've got to leave it here after this question. But what else do we know about who else is involved here? You've talked a lot about the family, but is there another entity that, is commingled with this?
He has several different shell companies, but if you think of his church, he is like a pyramid and he is at the top. Okay. And so below him, he has mentors that are basically doing all of his bidding for him. And they're the ones that control all of the members. And so his deputies are Shirley Kim, Matthew Shin, and his wife, Hannah. Okay. And then he has sub-mentors and that do even more bidding. And so the people that are at the bottom have like no control. And then as they go up in the ranks, they end up getting more control. And then they become part of the system and they're abusing people. And I think the biggest thing I would say for the survivors that have watched this all play out is that they are terrified that the people that are still in are in serious danger right now.
All right, Katie Joy, we've got to leave it there. Please come back and fill us in when we learn more about what happened with this raid. We look forward to talking to you. Thank you very much, Katie.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.